Stranger Things took the nerdy pop culture world by storm when it burst onto the scene in 2016. Whether it's Dungeons and Dragons you're into, 80s music, or all things sci-fi, it has something for everyone. It even has big, poofed up hair and short shorts, if that's what you're into. As well as showcasing some of the most heartwarming friendships TV has to offer, its real charm lies in its twists and turns. Is that a monster we just saw? Will that character survive? Is Steve now a good guy? Welcome back to The Binger, everyone, and in today's video, we will be counting down the craziest Stranger Things moments that ever happened. So, we'll be focusing on the wildest, most unexpected moments that shocked us all, and left us agape, staring at the TV, saying, "What?" Yes, Will has a knack for getting into danger, and in Season 2 his body is taken over by the dreaded Mind Flayer, and he becomes a zombie, forced to do his bidding. After realising that Will is trapped inside his own body, the gang grab him, tie him up, and try to coax poor Will out with stories of his childhood. But the Mind Flayer isn't having any of it, and what follows is a super intense interrogation-like sequence with Will's eyes almost bulging out of their sockets. The reason this scene is so memorable is down to the acting. Winona Ryder's Joyce is in pieces after realising that her son might be slipping away from her, and Noah Schnapp, who portrays Will, plays on the duality of his personality brilliantly, giving us a smirk followed by a blank stare. Not only is the whole scene incredibly moving, but the clever Morse code aspect of the story is awesome to watch. And when the phone rings, oh, the tension. We were all dared, coerced, or forced to do something we didn't want to do when we were a kid. Hopefully, it wasn't stepping off a cliff to save your friend from being attacked with a knife. Well, that's exactly what Mike had to do. When Bully Troy has Dustin held at knife point, he tells Mike to step off a cliff for his own sick amusement. Feeling rather pleased with himself, he watches as Mike nervously edges forward, and much to his and our surprise, he does it. But nobody bagged on 11 being there to catch him. As Mike hangs in the air like a leaf caught in an updraft, we start to piece together what's going on. Enter 11 to finish the bullies off. Looking back, you could think, yeah, but 11 caught him, he wasn't really in any danger. But Mike didn't know that. He stepped off a cliff to save his friend. What a guy. Next in our list, rather conveniently, is yet another encounter with Troy the Bully. In fact, this one kinda helped fuel the whole cliff encounter we just talked about. Following a speech given by the school principal about grieving for the missing Will, emotions are high, and the gang are naturally feeling upset. So what does Troy do? He laughs, obviously. This leads to Mike defending Will's honour, which is awesome, but surprisingly not the best bit. The cherry on the cake in this moment is 11 stepping in, freezing Troy in place, and then making him wet his pants. She then bounces out of there like a boss. Gotta love it. Finding the missing Will was one thing, but rescuing him was a whole different ballgame. After venturing into the Upside Down and finding Will's body, imprisoned with a tentacle thing stuck in his mouth, Joyce and Hopper try to resuscitate him, and it ain't a pretty sight. Spliced together with flashbacks of Hopper losing his daughter, it's an extremely emotional scene as we see Hopper's past anguish motivating him in his efforts. They wrestle with him to the point of pounding his chest to restart his heart. Flitting between that and Hopper's daughter's flatlined heart monitor, we don't know which way it's gonna go. Thankfully, Will comes too, and together with Hopper and Joyce, and Will, we breathe a massive sigh of relief. Another unsettling entry next, and yet another involving Will. Trying to piece together what's happening with her son, Joyce is reviewing footage of the gang at Halloween, and when Will starts acting strange, she pauses it, and looks in horror as a shadowy, tentacled creature towers over him. From the second we see it and hear the droning music chime in, we know exactly what we're looking at. But it's the panicked Joyce that makes this scene. Rushing to the kitchen, she grabs some paper and a crayon and traces the outline of the monster, comparing it to one of Will's drawings. And yep, you guessed it, it's the Mind Flayer. We don't know why, but there's something irresistibly lovable about a nerdy underdog in movies and TV. And Barb totally epitomises that in Stranger Things. As Nancy's friend and ultimately the wise voice of reason, she always seems to be well in the know about what's going on with her much cooler friend. She was like Nancy's compass, which made it all the more surprising when she was bumped off just 2 episodes into the first season. While at Steve's house, Barb ends up slipping into the Upside Down as everyone else inside enjoys themselves. particularly Steve and Nancy. It's the juxtaposition of Bob's graphic demise and Steve and Nancy's fondling that really strikes a chord here. We've just come to get to know Bob, a character who is well attuned to the tribulations of high school, like many of us, and yet she's taken away from us. It remains a mystery for quite some time as to what actually happened to her and if she is still alive, which further adds to the poignancy of the scene. Oh Bob, come back to us. Shrouded in mystery, Eleven is constantly trying to discover where she came from and how she got her powers, and when she finds her mother, she thinks she's onto a winner. Unfortunately, her mother is in a vegetative state. Blindfolding herself and delving deep into the dark void of her mind, Eleven is able to relive her mother's past. She witnesses everything from her own birth to her mother's electroshock therapy, the very procedure that left her in her unresponsive state. The rollercoaster of events gives us a rapid glimpse of a terribly sad past and fuels our own intrigue towards Eleven, and anger towards Dr. Martin Brenner. The evolution of Steve Harrington in Stranger Things is something of beauty. At the start, he was the quintessential school bully, tormenting Jonathan all while trying to flirt with Nancy. However, as the show has gone on, he's joined the gang in their endeavours and become a favourite among fans. In perhaps his finest moment ever, Steve steps up and protects Dustin, Max and Lucas when they're trapped on a bus in a scrapyard. Armed with a bat full of nails, Steve goes head to head with a swarm of Demagogues. And when one of them tries to get into the bus, he throws himself in the way to defend Max. Given the fate of some other characters on the show, we could have seen Steve meeting his sacrificial end here. But no, he battles the Demagogues like the action-ready mullet-haired legend he is and lives to fight another day. There's plenty of high-octane, slow-motion sequences in Stranger Things, many of which include Eleven reaching her hand out with her nose bleeding and going, "Ah." Arguably the best example of this is at the end of Season 1, with the Demagogue showdown. After being pinned down in a classroom, Mike, Lucas and Dustin manage to get the Demagogue on the ropes, ready for Eleven to step in and finish the job. Blaring music, flickering light and lots of screaming follows. And as the drama builds and builds, we think, yes, she's done it. But after the Demagogue is reduced to dust, it seems Eleven has been too. All we are left with is a void in the wall and the guys looking sad and confused. Ah, the innocence of youth. You know how it is. See an injured bird on the street? Heck, why not try to mend it back to full health? Find an alien slug in a bin? Keep it as a pet. You know, the usual. When Dustin finds said slug thingy, or Dart as he calls it, it's all a bit of fun, at first. But Dart, who we soon find out is basically a mini Demagogue, starts to rapidly grow out of control. And it eventually bursts out of its glass case and, well, heads for Dustins Cat. I guess we kind of expected some sort of breakout, like maybe it would jump out of a window, eat a cake in the kitchen, or rip up the curtains. But we never thought Dustin's cat would end up on the chopping block. Ah, poor old Muse. We are teased to elements of Eleven's abilities throughout Season 1, but as viewers, we are waiting for a big display of superhuman power, something that shows us she's not just about performing party tricks. Episode 7 gives us just that. Being chased by Brenner and his goons, the troupe are fleeing on bikes. No match for vans, right? Think again. In one of the most iconic moments of the entire series, Eleven uses her abilities to flip a van right over their heads, crashing down on the road behind them. Not only does this look gnarly as, but it was the first proper display of Eleven's immense power, and the look on the kids' faces says it all. In one of the darkest moments in the series, we see Joyce and Jonathan emotionally torn to shreds as they identify Will's body, or what they think is Will's body. And naturally, we take this at face value, but not all is what it seems. After breaking into the facility where Will's body is being held, Hopper decides to examine the body for himself. After realizing that it doesn't quite feel right, he takes a knife, opens up the chest, and realizes that it's a dummy, filled with fluff. Yes, a few seconds later we work out what's happened, and that the lab have faked the whole thing. But following the acceptance that Will is really gone, and then the dramatic reveal that the body was a super realistic dummy, was just mind-boggling. Billy is the perfect example of a love-to-hate villain. He's 50% jerk and 50% cool, and his many encounters with the gang all lead up to a showdown in Season 2, after he comes looking for his stepsister, Max. For good measure, we get a tense man-to-man moment between Steve and Billy, with veiled threats flying all over the place, but once Billy mows down Steve, grabs Lucas, and gets kneed in the nuts, it's on. Tussling in the kitchen, Steve comes back into the fold and bosses Billy with a few punches. It's all going Steve's way, but one shattered piece of crockery later, and Steve's done for. After Billy rains down punches on him, all seems lost, until Max comes to the rescue and stabs a needle in Billy's neck. Flopping like a ragdoll, there's only one thing left to do: mark his card with a baseball bat between the legs. Topping our list today is a moment that had fans rewinding out of sheer disbelief. Did they really just bump off Bob? Surely not. Bob, the lovable, cuddly, good guy who seems to be the only good constant thing in Joyce's life? Say it ain't so, come on. Sadly, yes, it is. When the gang end up in a tight spot, superhero Bob steps up and saves the day, risking his life to get the guys out of the sticky situation. And then he turns towards the camera and... as if him meeting his end wasn't bad enough, the whole thing is shot in slow motion as it cuts between him being attacked and Joyce completely distraught. Surely they could have done something, right? Oh Bob, you will always be a superhero in our eyes. So, what do you think is the craziest moment from Stranger Things? Did we miss any big ones from our list? Make sure to let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Binger for more awesome videos like this. See you next time.